Going on, guys? Welcome in. I am Kadarius Washington, and this is the Sports Rundown. It's a pleasure to have you guys in, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Click that notification bell to be notified of when I post again, and also follow me on Twitter and on Blue Sky at CW Talk Sports. That's CWTALKS Sports. And boy, oh boy, do we have a lot of sports to cover for you today. We got to talk about the New York Knicks, one step closer to the Eastern Conference Finals, folks, as they pretty much have the foot on the necks of my Boston Celtics. The Minnesota Timberwolves having a 3-1 series lead over Golden State. We got to talk about Giannis, who is non-committal on his Bucks future. We'll get into that. Also, a little bit of NFL stuff we have to cover today, too. YouTube getting an NFL game. Just got that a few minutes ago. We'll get to that. We also got to talk about the Bengals contract situation as far as Trey Hendrickson is concerned. We'll get to that. And we also figured out what our international schedule, for the most part, is going to be as we get you going here on the Sports Rundown. So we're going to start today with, of course, the action from last night in the NBA, beginning with the New York Knicks and the Boston Celtics. First, folks, let me congratulate the New York Knicks for advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals. They did it, folks. The New York Knicks absolutely snatched the souls out of my Boston Celtics. Honestly, I thought, just like everyone else, that my Boston Celtics were going to take care of the New York Knicks easily. But really, it wasn't. It was the other way around, folks. The Boston, number one, the Boston Celtics, as they pretty much beat themselves in this series. And number two, the Knicks took advantage of our follies, and Tom Thibodeau absolutely coached circles around Joe Mazzulla. Jalen Brunson was the clutch player of the year this year for a reason. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, did he show that in this series and this postseason overall. Do you know that Jalen Brunson has scored 102 points in the fourth quarter of this postseason? 102 points. Do you know who the next guy is on the list? Anthony Edwards with 68 points. So Brunson has 102 points, and Anthony Edwards is number two on the list with 68 points, which is crazy, but we'll get to Anthony Edwards in a second. Mikal Bridges was absolutely incredible in this series, and Lord knows Mikal Bridges went bonkers last night. And really, for the most part, this was a game where both the Knicks and the Celtics pretty much went blow for blow with each other. I mean, the Knicks, they just always found a way to respond to Boston, and Boston put up a fight for at least the first three quarters of the game, but the Knicks just responded time after time after time. If it wasn't Jalen Brunson, it was Mikal Bridges, and if it wasn't Mikal Bridges, it was Mitchell Robinson. The New York Knicks, I mean, they were just incredible last night, and you just have to give them credit for that. As for my Boston Celtics, folks, I have to be honest with you. This has to be the most sickening Boston Celtic team I have ever seen. Just absolutely sickening. How in the world do the Boston Celtics go from winning the championship last year, pretty much retaining everybody? Because listen, this is literally the same team this year from last year. How in the world do the Boston Celtics go from winning the championship last year, being one of the best teams in the NBA all season this year, top two, top three team this season, and we get into the Eastern semifinals where the deeper team, we're the better team, and we absolutely implode against the Knicks? This was an absolute choke job, absolutely pathetic, embarrassing showing from my Boston Celtics this series. I mean, this team, like I said, listen, credit the New York Knicks. Incredible job. All the talent. Tom Thibodeau coaching his rear end off against Joe Mazzulla. But as I said in the beginning, let's get one thing straight, folks. The New York Knicks did not beat the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics beat the Boston Celtics. We've been saying this for about 2 or 3 years now, folks. I mean, even going back to 2022, when we made the NBA Finals against the Golden State Warriors and we ultimately lost that in 6. We said that this team and this talent, the only team that is capable of beating the Boston Celtics is the Boston Celtics. And folks, the Boston Celtics absolutely beat themselves in this series. I mean, we didn't even look all that impressive in the last series against the Magic. And the Boston Celtics, they're just going out sad here, folks. I mean, like I said, they put up a fight yesterday's game, and we'll get to Jason Tatum in a little while, but Boston is going out very sad, folks. And honestly, folks, I think this may be the last we may be seeing of this variation of this Boston Celtic team. I can see the Celtics blowing this whole thing up in the offseason. And honestly, I felt like it was going to be a possibility for us for how we looked in this series. But realistically, I can really see us blowing this thing up. I think Joe Mazzulla is on his way out of Boston. And like I said on the previous sports rundown, if Joe Mazzulla, and I think I said it last week or I said it Monday. I remember one of the days I said it. I said, if Boston loses this series in a quick fashion, or if they lost this series period, then they're probably going to have to show Joe Mazzulla the door. And that could very well be the case for him and for the team. I mean, yeah, we won our championship last year. And of course, having one more championship than those Los Angeles Fakers are always going to make me happy. And oh, by the way, 5 of those championships for the Lakers, it don't even belong to them. It belongs to the Minneapolis Lakers, just like how the 1951 championship doesn't belong to the Sacramento Kings, Rochester Royals. The 1955 championship doesn't belong to the Philadelphia 76ers, Syracuse Nationals. And the 1958 championship doesn't belong to the Atlanta Hawks, St. Louis Hawks. But that's another discussion for another day. And also, the death blow to my Boston Celtics, of course, was when Jason Tatum went down with that non-contact lower leg injury. Jason Tatum is a tough guy, folks. Jason Tatum has played well over 700 games in his young career since he came in the 2016-17 season. He's a tough guy. He's played through injuries before. But when we saw him down, writhing in pain like that, I knew we weren't going to see him again in the game. And we're probably not going to be seeing him again for the foreseeable future. Because listen, I'm not going to speculate any injuries. We don't do that here. But a lot of people are saying that it looked like an ACL tear from how his right leg kind of buckled last night. And I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong, and I'm hoping we get a different diagnosis, obviously. But man, they might have a point there with that Achilles. And it's very, very, very unfortunate because Jason Tatum last night was looking like the Tatum that we know and love. I mean, Jason Tatum was absolutely getting it done last night. I mean, a 40-piece. I mean, he had his best game of the series. And the thing was, the Knicks also had their best game of the series. And Tatum pretty much gave the Celtics a fighting chance in the game last night. But now that Tatum is probably going to be out for the remainder of the series, this thing is pretty much over. And Tatum going to be out for God knows how long. So again, I tip my Celtic hat to the New York Knicks. This series is over. They deserve this. But obviously, I'm not going to be rooting for them because it's 100% goes against my Boston Celtic fan nature. So I'm going to be rooting for the Pacers as I believe that they're going to go ahead and wrap their series up against the Cavs tonight because I believe this thing is over. Like I said on yesterday's sports rundown, I will be surprised if this thing goes to a game 6. I think it's a possibility, but as we know right now, Donovan Mitchell is a game time decision after re-aggravating his ankle injury on Sunday afternoon. So I'm going to say this. If Mitchell plays, they have a shot. But if he doesn't play, the Cavs are done. Pure and simple, the Cavs are done. And speaking of done, I think we can go ahead and stick a fork in the Golden State Warriors. I think the Warriors are pretty much finished. Listen, and I made a mistake yesterday when I said Steph Curry could return for game 5. He's actually scheduled to return at the earliest for game 6. But from how things are looking now, I don't even think a game 6 is going to be necessary. I think we've seen the last of the 2024-25 Golden State Warriors. And as for the Timberwolves, like I said, for this young team, this was going to be a measuring stick series for this young Minnesota Timberwolves team. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, did they hold their water against the Golden State Warriors. And also, folks, how good has Julius Randle been? Julius Randle has been absolutely phenomenal this postseason and in this series. I mean, look at this. In his last 3 games, Julius Randle has had 24 points, 7 rebounds, and 11 assists. He had a triple-double in game 3 with 24 points, 10 rebounds, and 12 assists. And last night, 31 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. I mean, he has absolutely been incredible. Anthony Edwards with another incredible game. 30 points shooting, 11 for 21 from the field, and 6 for 11 from the 3. The Minnesota Timberwolves they shot the ball absolutely phenomenally last night. They shot 49% from the field and 47% from 3. An incredible shooting performance by the Minnesota Timberwolves and a pretty bad shooting performance from 3 last night for the Golden State Warriors, as the Warriors shot 8 for 27, which is 29% from the field. And folks, listen, I had a feeling that the Golden State Warriors were going to miss Steph Curry in this series. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, do they miss him. And honestly, folks, I think this series, for as far as the Warriors and Timberwolves, I think this is just about over as far as that's concerned. But one series that's not going to be over tonight, we have, I believe, game 5 of the series between the Denver Nuggets and the OKC Thunder, as it now turns into a best-of-3 series. And like I said, I can see this thing going to 7 games, folks. And I believe tonight the series shifts back to OKC. So that's going to be a very, very interesting watch as we have that game later on tonight. All right, so the other NBA-related story that happened yesterday, the NBA draft lottery. The draft lottery was held last night, and I want y'all to take a look at these numbers here. So from the draft lottery odds, the Utah Jazz finished with the worst record in the NBA. The Jazz, the Wizards, and the Hornets each had a 14% chance at the number 1 pick, and pretty much come to a consensus that the number 1 pick is going to be Cooper Flagg. So the Jazz, Hornets, and Wizards each had a 14% chance. The New Orleans Pelicans had a 12.5% chance. The 76ers had a 10% chance. The Brooklyn Nets had a 9% chance. The Raptors at 7.5%. The Spurs at 6%. The Suns at 3.8%. The Portland Trail Blazers at 3.7%. The Dallas Mavericks at 1.8%. The Chicago Bulls at 1% as well. And then the Sacramento Kings and the Atlanta Hawks each with a less than 1% chance at the number one pick. And as it turned out, folks, to save us a little bit of time, long story short, the Dallas Mavericks won the draft lottery. The Dallas Mavericks captured the flag. The Dallas Mavericks, just literally right after the Dallas Wings and the WNBA won the Paige Becker sweepstakes, the Dallas Mavericks won the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. And a lot of people now are starting to call the NBA draft lottery rigged. Because listen, a few months ago, obviously the biggest story in sports, Nico Harrison pulling arguably the worst trade in the history of the NBA, sending Luka Doncic and Markieff Morris and all those people to the Lakers for Anthony Davis and Maxi Kleber, I believe. Probably have it mixed up, but anyway, the AD Luka trade, to cut it short. And Nico Harrison, people are really believing that Nico Harrison really pulled the heist of the century from making that absolutely boneheaded trade to landing the number one pick in the draft. And I tweeted this out last night. I'm still not apologizing to Nico because that trade still should not have happened. But listen, like I said a while ago, there's a lot of people that are calling this thing rigged, especially now with this whole situation with the lottery odds and everything, which I don't know what that had to do with it with this particular spot because the Mavericks still had a 1% chance of getting them. And now you've got people who are calling for the draft lottery to be scrapped altogether. Now listen, there's two ways of looking at this. Let's say we keep the draft lottery as it is, because of course, Adam Silver changing the lottery odds and that whole situation to reduce teams from tanking because it messes with the quality of the game, it messes with the integrity of the game. I get it. You can't mess with the quality and you can't mess with the integrity. I get it. And of course, this draft lottery thing has been going on for 100 years. But if you get rid of the draft lottery, you're pretty much opening the door to tanking, and the worst team getting the number one pick, which would have been the Utah Jazz, obviously, you would have a lot more teams tanking. It would kind of mess up the quality of the game, like I said earlier. So honestly, just be better off with having this draft lottery, I feel. Now, do I think the lottery was rigged? No. I mean, these things are a literal crapshoot. I don't think there's some underground deal, underground handshake thing with Nico Harrison and Adam Silver saying, if you make this trade, we'll give you the number one pick. I don't think that's the case. I think that narrative is getting absolutely overblown. I think it's just the ping pong ball somehow, some way fell in the Mavericks' favor. I am not reading too much into this, but it was very, very interesting to see the Dallas Mavericks and Nico Harrison landing the number one pick. I'm still not apologizing to Nico. Nico Harrison is still not off the hook, but that was very, very, very interesting. All right, I want to get to this because I didn't get to it yesterday. So a pretty big story that we're going to be looking at in the NBA as we go into the offseason is Giannis Antetokounmpo. This is definitely going to be the summer of Giannis Antetokounmpo. And there was an announcement yesterday that Giannis is, for the first time in his career, there was a report rather, that for the first time in his career, that he's open to options outside of the Bucks. As a matter of fact, let me read you this Shams Charania quote when he was on Get Up yesterday. He said, quote, the two-time MVP, NBA MVP has not made any firm decisions on his Bucks future after the franchise's third consecutive postseason exit in the first round. But for the first time in his career, Antetokounmpo is open-minded about exploring whether his best long-term fit is remaining in Milwaukee or playing elsewhere, leak sources told ESPN. Charania also said any conversations surrounding the perennial All-NBA superstar and champion start primarily where he believes his long-term future lies and whether there's a franchise outside of Milwaukee that is sensible for him. Also saying that the Bucks front office and Antetokounmpo's agents will sit down soon and discuss his future. Do you know what I interpret from that quote, folks? He gone. I think Giannis Antetokounmpo's time in Milwaukee is finished. And I mean, listen, I would not blame Giannis Antetokounmpo at all if he explored options outside of Milwaukee. I mean, Giannis Antetokounmpo, I feel like he served his time in Milwaukee. He's he served 10 years there. He's had a 10-year career there. He's won his MVPs. He brought a championship to Milwaukee to the first time in 50 years. He's brought the amount of success to the Milwaukee Bucks that they have not seen since Kareem Olajuwon. I mean, Kareem Olajuwon. Who the heck is he? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Oscar Robinson brought to that franchise. But Giannis, I got to be honest with you folks, he's not winning with this team anymore. This Milwaukee Buck team, their championship is closed. It's closed. And on top of that, they already sent Chris Middleton away in a trade that brought Dame Lillard there, who's probably not even going to play next season because of that Achilles tear. But the other best players on the team are Bobby Portis and Brook Lopez, and both of them are scheduled to be free agents. So I think the ceiling in Milwaukee for a championship is closed. Giannis has served his time, and I think it's time for him to go ahead and explore options outside of Milwaukee because this team, it's time for a rebuild. It's time to start this thing all the way over as far as the Milwaukee Bucks is concerned. Another big story, too, from yesterday, Michael Jordan. He's joining the NBA on NBC because, as you know, NBC is getting the rights to the NBA this fall. He's going to join NBC as a contributor, even though it's not clear what exactly his role is going to be. But he's gonna be covering the game. Now, listen, a couple of things here with this. Michael Jordan is pretty much joining the trend of all these GOATs going into broadcasting. Obviously, last year, Tom Brady calling games for Fox. We have Wayne Gretzky in the studio covering the NHL on TNT. We got Albert Pujols covering games, doing stuff for MLB Network. So Michael Jordan is pretty much joining that trend. And another thing too, NBC is really doing everything they can to bring back the nostalgia for the 90s. Now, obviously, I'm 23. I'm too young to know about all the 90s stuff and all that stuff in the 90s and early 2000s. But when you think of the NBA on NBC and the nostalgia, you think of Round Ball Rock. You think of that John Tesh. You think of the announcer who passed in 2019, and they said that they're going to use AI to recreate his voice, which I think is a horrible idea, but that's another conversation for another day. But when you look at the NBA on NBC, you automatically think about Michael Jordan. which led me to thinking. So the NBA has had different eras as far as broadcasting is concerned. You had the NBA on CBS from the 70s to the 90s. You had the NBA on NBC from the 90s to the early 2000s, and now currently you have the NBA on ESPN and ABC, and TNT had it forever, and they're about to lose the rights to it. But I was thinking, when you think of the NBA on CBS, some players that come to mind, of course, is the great New York Knicks team in the 70s with Walt Clyde Frazier and Willis Reed. You think of Kareem and Magic for the Lakers. You think of Larry Bird. You think of Dr. J in his time with the 76ers. And then, like I said, on NBC, you think of Jordan. You think of the Bulls dynasty. You think of Shaq. You think of Kobe, the three-peat for the Lakers. You think of Ben Wallace, Rasheed Wallace, Ron Artest, or whatever his name is nowadays, Reggie Miller, Hakeem Olajuwon. And just like the NBA on ESPN, you think of Kobe and Powell. You think of the big three Celtics. You think of the Heatles. You think of LeBron. You think of Steph. You think of D. Wade. You think of Dirk Nowitzki. You think of Luka Doncic. So I really like what NBC is doing, is capturing the nostalgia from the old days and pretty much bringing it to the younger sports fan like myself, because I am very, very interested when it comes to the different histories, when it comes to sports. So I think that is a very, very incredible job that they're doing with NBC. And I'm going to love to see Michael Jordan and whatever he does as far as NBC is concerned. All right, I'm not going to do a hockey segment today because it was a pretty rough night for hockey. I mean, we had a couple of blowouts. We had the Hurricanes destroying the Capitals 5-2, and then the Oilers skunking the Golden Knights again at 3-0. And of course, the Hurricanes and Oilers taking 3-1 leads in their respective series. And honestly, folks, I think both of those series are just about finished. I think the Oilers snatched the soul out of the Golden Knights. I think the Golden Knights are done. And the Capitals, we enjoyed this magic carpet ride with Alex Ovechkin, of course, breaking the goals record. And I would have loved to see him cap it off with a championship. But this Hurricane team just too good. I mean, they've been good for a little while. And honestly, those series are just about over. And we only have one game on the hockey card tonight, and that's game 4 between the Stars and the Jets. And of course, the Stars with a 2-1 series lead as far as that's concerned. And honestly, and like I said, I'm really into this series. I'm really into the playoff hockey. So that's definitely going to be something that we monitor as we go as far as the sports night is concerned. All right, going to the NFL. Of course, tomorrow, the NFL schedule release is taking place. Of course, we got a whole lot of leaks of games that are going to be happening. And I just saw a notification earlier that YouTube is going to be getting an NFL game. YouTube is going to be getting the first Friday game in week 1, as that's going to be happening in Brazil. Of course, last year Peacock had that first first Friday game, and from the looks of things, the Chargers obviously going to be the home team for that, and it's rumored that it's going to be Chiefs Chargers as far as the Brazil game is concerned. And we pretty much have the rest of the international schedule. So in week 4, we have the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers in Dublin, Ireland. And then the next week, we got the Vikings taking on the Browns in London, the first London game. And the Vikings becoming the first team with back-to-back games in different countries, which is interesting. And then we've got the New York Jets taking on the Broncos in London in week 6. And then week 7, of course, we have to have our customary Jaguar home game in London as they take on the Rams. I'm kind of surprised that the Jaguars didn't get 2 London games, because usually they get 2 of the 3 London games. So that's interesting. And then in Berlin, we got the week 10 game with the Falcons and the Colts. And then Week 11, we have the Commanders taking on the Dolphins. Now, listen, the first game, the Brazil game, is a rumor, so nothing's been confirmed about that. But a lot of these games, I'm not very confident about all these games as far as the quality is concerned. Because we have the Vikings taking on the Steelers, which are a lot of question marks with both teams. Then we've got the Vikings and the Browns the Browns. We know the Browns are going to stink this year. The Jets are going to stink this year. The Broncos are going to be good, but the Jets are going to stink. The Jaguars, a lot of question marks around them. I mean, the Jaguar Ram game could be interesting, but we got to see obviously how that plays out. And then we've got Falcons and Colts. I think that game's going to stink because the Colts, I don't know what's going on with the Colts. And then we have Jaguars, the Commanders and the Dolphins. A lot of question marks with the Dolphins. But, I mean, of course, it's better that we send all the other games. We don't send all of our good games, what I'm trying to say, to international teams, because last year I was absolutely upset with the fact that they put that Chief Dolphin game in London. They made that an international game, and that was supposed to be the Tyreek Hill returning to Miami game. Now, obviously, we ended up getting that in the playoffs where it was literally 30 below in Kansas City, and of course people freezing their behinds off. But I guess it's kind of a good thing to have to send a lot of those games we're not sure about instead of sending, let's say, Chiefs Eagles to an international game, because that would receive a lot of heat as far as the schedule is concerned. And also a couple of other games too. Fox is getting a Week 16 doubleheader as the Commanders are going to be taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, and then the Green Bay Packers taking on the Chicago Bears. And then Bears and Eagles are going to be playing in a Black Friday game. And the Chiefs and Broncos getting the Christmas primetime game on Prime Video. Now, listen, folks, the Chiefs always get Christmas games. Like, I remember a couple of years ago when Christmas was on a Sunday, too. This was in 2016. And the Broncos and Chiefs had that Christmas night game. And now they're putting the Chiefs back on Christmas. Are the Chiefs the unofficial Christmas team? Just like how we have the Lions and the Cowboys for Thanksgiving, are the Chiefs the unofficial Christmas team of the NFL? Now, obviously, they said that the NFL said that they're not going to have a fixed team per se as far as the the Christmas games are concerned. But it's interesting, the Chiefs getting this Christmas game once again. And honestly, I saw this tweet too that the Jets are not going to get a lot of standalone games. I mean, it's good. The Jets are going to stink this year. Why would you give the Jets all those primetime games when we already know they're not going to be good this year? Just like I know they're going to be better, but I hope the NFL knows what they're doing, giving us all these Chicago Bear games again, because the Chicago Bears always find a way to let us down as far as their quality is concerned. But very interesting to see these games leak. And then, of course, tomorrow we have the full schedule release, and we'll react to that too later this week here on the Sports Rundown. And one more story that I want to get to before I sign off, the Trey Hendrickson story. So Trey Hendrickson yesterday said in a statement to ESPN, quote, "No communication has taken place between my camp and the organization post-draft. The offers prior to the draft did not reflect the vision we shared and were promised last offseason if I continue to play at a high level. Coaches are aware of these past conversations, and rather than using collaborations to get us to a point to bring me home to the team, they are no longer communicating, and I have been eagerly awaiting a resolution to the situation. But that's hard to do when there's no discussion and an evident lack of interest in reaching mutual goals," end quote. And to make matters worse, I have another quote from Trey Hendrickson, if I can find it here. Let's see. Because basically, I don't know if I have it, but oh yeah, here it is. Here it is. It said Trey Hendrickson reportedly saying, "quote," that he received a text from Zach Taylor, the head coach of the Bengals, 30 days before mandatory minicamp, warning him that he would be fined that if he didn't show up. And he said that that was something that frustrated him, especially since given the poor communication from the team throughout the offseason. And Hendrickson made it clear that he will not play under the final year of his contract. That report, of course, coming from Jordan Schultz at Fox Sports. This situation is kind of ugly, folks. And honestly, this is something that the Bengals are notorious for. The Cincinnati Bengals are historically a stupid franchise. They're historically a cheap franchise. I mean, Joe Burrow, and we talked about this on the Sports Rundown previously. Joe Burrow going on a podcast, pretty much laying out a game plan of how to get all the key players paid. Now, listen, the Bengals defense was absolutely pathetic last year, but Trey Hendrickson was one of those bright points as far as the Bengals defense is concerned. And I thought Hendrickson was going to be on his way out of there anyway, especially given that he has 1 year left on the deal. But of course, we heard talks early in the offseason about the contract, and now contracts talks are pretty much stalling. So I don't think that this whole contract resolution is going. I don't think this whole contract situation is going to come to a resolution for Hendrickson. I think Hendrickson is pretty. I mean, he's. I mean, there was a report yesterday, well, today rather, that well, it wasn't a report. It actually happened that Trey Hendrickson showed up to minicamp, but he didn't dress and he didn't participate. So Hendrickson is pretty much holding in, which is a trend that we usually see when players are holding out for a new deal. They pretty much hold in to avoid all those fines because minicamp and OTAs, those fines are pretty much up to the teams. But when we get to training camp, it's a mandatory $50,000 fine per day for each day of camp missed. So this is definitely going to be a long and drowned out process that I don't think is going to come to a resolution for the Bengals because, like I said, the Bengals are historically cheap. They always find a way to do the wrong thing. And, well, I mean, at the same time, they essentially went into the offseason and got Hendrickson's replacement, of course, addressing the defense. But I think Trey Hendrickson, he may be on his way out of there as far as the Bengals are concerned. Well, folks, we have a lot of sport. We have a pretty decent sports night tonight. We got the NBA coming up. We got the one game in hockey tonight. And we got a whole lot of different other storylines coming in the world of sports coming tonight and, of course, later on this week. And I am definitely excited for all of that. Well, folks, that is going to do it for today's edition of the Sports Rundown. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Click that notification bell to be notified of when I post again. And also follow me on Twitter and on Blue Sky at CW Talk Sports. That's CWTALKS Sports. And I will see y'all the next time. Peace.